When it comes to Arsenal content creators on social media, I'd like to personally think I'm one of the more level-headed people. I'd like to think I don't praise or critique anyone without evidence, and I definitely don't back anyone religiously, or lead a crusade, whether it's the Mikel Arteta out brigade or the Arteta sexuals. I don't believe anyone is without faults in life. I think if you do good things, you should be praised. If you do shaky things, there should be question marks. It is currently 5:30 a.m. people on this Tuesday. Arsenal are going to play Nottingham Forest. As you can see, I've still got my dressing gown on. As I said, I try to be level-headed. I try not to look at things without context. Obviously, in life, we live in a day and age where someone can give a 10-minute to an hour-long interview or something. Their words can be taken out of context. 30 seconds goes online. It drives engagement. I must admit, though, as much as I have admiration for Mikel Arteta, there is a lot of frustrations. And again, one love for the rebuild. From the moment you've walked into Arsenal Football Club to this point, we've won 2 trophies. The club is singing again. The conversation now begins as to whether, we can win a Prem or a Champs. I don't think it'll happen this year. So I try not to get frustrated, people. But I do think for the players, for Mikel Arteta and everybody involved, as we're looking to go to a level that we haven't been at the Emirates, the margins for error get smaller and smaller, and the scope for criticism gets harsher and harsher. Life is harsh. Football is definitely harsh, people. Now, I'm sure you would have seen several things around Mikel Arteta's interview with TNT Sport surfacing about Emil Smith Rowe, etc., etc. And this is why I was waiting for at least a website article, people. Again, the bulk of this actually isn't that bad, but when you get to the end, so stick with me and stay with me, just because I know some of you haven't seen these comments before, let's go over it first and foremost. Mikel Arteta has challenged his players to take another step forward and reiterated that there are many phases to come as he dismissed speculation about his future. Now, in football, there's several phases. I'm sure Pep Guardiola would say the same, but I'm pretty sure Arsenal fans are getting a bit tired of trusting processes and phases and things like that. How's about just spending money competently, just improving what we need to improve, because it does feel like there is something special at this football club developing. And if we could just kick it into gear a bit more, then we could reach the Holy Land. He then obviously has been linked with Barcelona. I don't know where it's coming from. It's totally untrue, and I'm very upset about it. Boy, such is the fall from grace for Barcelona, isn't it? This is the reaction when linked with what should be one of the jobs at football's pinnacle. I could not believe it. It has no sources. You have to be cautious when you write things in the way it was yesterday. I am in the right place. I feel good about it. I am embracing a journey with this club, and there's still a long way to still go. He then went on to say, there's always a plan. A piece of paper can hold anything, but the moment that you start to walk, to jog, to run, and to experience what is happening, you could not see the clear picture of it. Okay, that pathway is the right one. You have to modify it a little bit and then go somewhere else. That's fair. That happens in life. It's very rarely A to B. We hear that, A to B, sorry. I do think we're on the right way. I think we're on the right path and with the right pace, especially. I think we're on the right path. I wouldn't say we're on the right pace personally, because, you look at what we did in the summer or didn't do, and you look at the issues that we have surrounding FFP. It does feel like some of our issues, for as much as what City or Liverpool are doing, for as much as I feel we are maximizing certain aspects of this football club, it does feel like, we make things more difficult for ourselves on and off the field, if I'm completely honest with you. So I'm not too sure we're at the right pace, because I would like to go slightly faster, Mikel Arteta. We have a lot to do, and there are many, many phases to come after this one, but I think it's a moment that the team has to make another step forward. Fair enough, people. He then said, we're going through a spell where results weren't actually representative of what we're doing in games. To a degree, that's fair, but again, as we're moving towards a team that can win Prems and Champs, it's not enough to play well. You need to win. We all know football is a very weird game. Sometimes you play terrible, you win. Sometimes you play absolutely amazing, or amazing for a few games, or relatively good for a few games, and you don't get the results. But fundamentally, it's about winning. It's about getting it done, really, regardless, because all that matters in May is how many games you've won, drawn, lost, and where you are on the points tally, people. Especially after last season. Last season and this season are very different, but Arsenal fans' imaginations were aroused as what could be, people, really and truly. We've established ourselves as at least one of the top 1 to 3 teams in the Premier League, but again, Premier League to back it would be nice, people. So yeah, I don't think he's wrong with that. So I was very complimentary with the team. We continue to do what we're doing, and we'll have a really, really good and strong season. I think that means silverware, even though we did win something in August. There are a few things that you can tweak and improve, but first of all, it was convincing them to continue to do what we do and just a bit better, especially in one area where games are just getting away from us. A striker, which again, had we have bought one in the summer or spent correctly or sold correctly, maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but football is harsh, people. You need then where it gets it a bit interesting, and I don't disagree with what he's about to say because he said this several times. You need your best players in the team available. When it comes to March, April, you are fighting for everything. You need your best players and the squad, everybody fit and available to push. I'm not going to lie, Mikel Arteta, surrounding certain players, them being injured is a regular theme of Arsenal. So at what point do we find external solutions? Because the margins are so small and the difference that big players can make in those games are huge, and we missed that last year. So why not learn from last year and make sure we're not still waffling about certain players getting fit and how they're going to change our fortunes, and obviously the drop off when certain players aren't there. I do think we've added to the squad, but fundamentally it's crazy, people. Arteta's desire to have all his players available is due to the fact he believes the Gunners are currently having to play with a thinner squad than their rivals, and the fact the club hasn't been able to strengthen during the current transfer window. Anything we're not able to do is because you and Edu Gaspar have spent money correctly or incorrectly, really and truly. The issues we find ourselves with FFPs, because for the last 2 years, and the signings have worked for the vast majority of them, you lot have been signing several players for big money, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but you lot have been controlling the budget. If we're working with a tighter budget now, it's because of you lot and Mikel Arteta and Edu. You're very calculated men. You look at the Kai Havertz signing, 65 million. I'm not doubting his quality. I'm not doubting what you saw, but you had to justify to the people signing the checks how he fits into this remit in the short, medium, and long term, and how he can, in his own way, individually get us closer to Manchester City and Liverpool and be part of the collective, which right now Kai Havertz isn't really that. Is he a midfielder? Is he a right-sided midfielder? Is he a left 8? Is he a false 9? Is he a 10? Speak to 20 different Arsenal fans, they say completely different. Now, I'm not telling Mikel Arteta where to spend the money and things, but could you have spent that money on a central midfielder that is more of an organic midfielder and a direct replacement to Granit Xhaka? Because we miss Granit Xhaka, whatever you say about him. You know, the very fact that we haven't enhanced or brought someone levels is why we're waffling about Xhaka. But even, there's a direct correlation with Zinchenko's struggle. Xhaka used to pull out wide to left back. He used to hug the touchline at times to allow Martinelli to invert. Obviously, he wanted to get onto the ball and make those third man runs. Kai Havertz doesn't align with that. And that's why I look at that signing a bit more questionable from Mikel Arteta, because you didn't wake up randomly and say, let's sign Kai Havertz. You saw a vision. You understand football to ways that I can't comprehend. So me as an ignorant fan and someone that isn't, going to defend everything Mikel Arteta does, but I like him, I'm looking at it shakily, really. And had you have done certain things there, could we have invested properly on someone like Mohamed Kudus, where Martinelli and Saka struggles, they could have come out? Could we have gone for a striker in the summer? I'm not too sure. Could we have brought in another defensive reinforcement? Every Arsenal fan that bothers to watch my channel knows there's a running joke from I've started YouTube. Can we address central midfield? It's not addressed. Declan Rice, quality player, only positive questions. Thomas Partey, whether it's because of his age, his inconsistency with injuries, his wages, days appear numbers. Jorginho and El Nene, not part of the long term. Kai Havertz, not working out like that. What's going on in the middle of the park? Edu and Arteta, you were central midfielders. While I think a striker enhances our system, a couple more defensive reinforcements, even though on the right track, we're doing all right. The midfield battle is crucial. We are not going to get to that next level without addressing midfield. We are not going to be a team that can control the tempo of games amicably, even though we're doing that, until central midfield is addressed. So what are we doing? I don't think you can sit here and blame KSE because the money's been available and they've given you the budget. You haven't whipped it right. So to hear certain things, this is where I now start getting frustrated, Mikel Arteta. We have one of the finished squads in the league, that's for sure, he confessed. When you talk about numbers, especially in certain areas, we're really thin. I'm not expecting us to sign 1 million players and get it right in one summer, but these excuses run out. Maybe in your first or second season where it's a rebuild of sorts, which it kind of still is, but it's a rebuild, fair enough. This is your squad. Anybody that is not at this team, whether they were, anyone that's not at this team anymore, anyone that is in this Arsenal team, whether they were bought under Mikel Arteta or here under previous regimes, it's because you vouch for them. This is your squad now. So if in the same way I praise certain aspects of how you've elevated it, at the point of Zinchenko coming in, Jesus coming in, what they've given, Declan Rice, what he's given, you know, he's injured, but Timber, how you've reintegrated William Saliba, how Gabriel is going from strength to strength. You know what? I like Aaron Ramsdale signing. You want to do the David Raya thing and commit, you know, 30 million when the time's right, fair enough. You know, Benjamin White, the signing's been justified. Bukayo Saka going from strength to strength. Odegaard, strength to strength. For the large part, Thomas Partey, Tomiyasu. I praise Mikel Arteta for that. So if I'm praising you for that, when I'm looking and thinking, rah, where's the striker? Because Arteta says we need to be a team that gets 100 goals. Arteta says we're a team that, you know, needs to be sharing out the goals. So why aren't the players doing it? Of course, the players need to stand up to be counted. But Arteta also says it's his job to maximize his resources. Is he getting the most out of these players? No, amicably, we're not really and truly. I like the fact of, you know, I don't look at the league table, but we're still in and around. So that tells you the standards are going up. But you're not, you know, a couple of players come out of this team, a couple of players have an off day, we're in issues. Mikel Arteta said a few weeks ago, months ago, better yet, that, you know, basically what Odegaard, Martinelli, Saka, and just sharing out the goals with Granit Xhaka as well. That's about 5 or so goals out the league. You know, it was not a fluke, but it was an anomaly of sorts. So if you sit there in August and you know this, could we have got a Kudus or a Pedro Neto? Because you tried to buy an explosive wide man before. Fair enough, the striker market weren't really quite there. And of course, I'm being a bit harsh, but could you have got a striker? Could you have spent that money a bit better? Could you have even got 2 central midfielders for the price of Kai Havertz? And I'm not making this a Kai Havertz thing, really. Again, I can't criticize the player beyond a certain point because he by himself, really and truly. It doesn't make sense. To hear we have one of the finished squads in the league is unacceptable, Mikel Arteta. We're trying to get closer to City or Liverpool. We know we was back into the Champions League. We know Liverpool's an anomaly because they don't, when they've achieved things, they've relatively had a smaller squad. But you was at Manchester City, you know how vital it is to have depth. And again, I know we ain't got unlimited budget and things like that, but let's keep it honest. As I said, if I praise a man, I'm asking questions. And this is your squad now. If we've got one of the finished squads, it's because of you and Edu, really and truly. So what's going on there? And he said, when you talk about numbers, especially in certain areas, really, we are really thin. We've been knowing what happens with injuries. You as a player, Mikel Arteta at Arsenal, let alone whatever was going on at Everton, obviously when you've walked in the door. So for me, this is unacceptable to hear, and it annoys me. I'm going to be completely honest. It annoys me really and truly. It wasn't possible to do any Jan deals. Okay, fair enough. We was briefed on that. But again, that's a direct consequence of what we did or didn't do in the summer and how we spent our budget. And now we didn't have the capacity to improve the team in the way that we want to improve it. So we decided not to do anything. I hear that. I'm not necessarily against that. If you can't do things, don't do it for the sake of it. We've been there before. But then it leads me to be devil's advocate. Do I think Arsenal want to win league titles and stuff? I think the players do. I think Mikel Arteta does. But collectively, are we, you know, did we see last season as you know what, the process, we challenged, fair enough. If this year, if we come within the top 3, they might say, you know what, challenge. Are we really trying to move the needle? I'm not too sure. We did act last January. Are we trying to move the needle and give us a buffer to aggressively go for a Premier or Champs, which for me is an impossible dream? Or are we going to say, you know what, next summer we go again? I'm not sure, people, but I find that really, especially we have one of the finished squads. That's unacceptable, really, because in the summer that means depth didn't improve. Of course, you know, everything will look better when everybody's fit, but that's a fallacy. This is the nature of the beast in the industry, which is football, really and truly. People get injured, losses of form, change in team dynamics and all of that jazz. It happens, people, really and truly. Injuries are not exclusive to us. And to be honest, we've been dealing with injuries since August and doing relatively okay. So it's not really making sense for me, man. It's quite annoying, really and truly. He did speak on Smith Rowe. He said things are coming together for him. Obviously, he had a difficult injury again and a difficult spell, and he's trailing really well. I think he's really pushing to get more minutes, and we're trying to do that because he's a fantastic player. Hopefully, the words match up, Mikel Arteta, because again, with great power comes great responsibility. As much as I think you're going to be a great manager in the future, I think you're a very good manager now. Got nothing but praise for you for the project you're doing, you know. But I don't think any man is without fault. In terms of the rebuild, tick, you know, competitive again, young, impressionable players are improving, different bits and pieces of tactics, spirit, all of that sort of stuff, you know, set pieces. I love a lot of what we're doing, Mikel Arteta. But now the conversation comes between winning a league title or Prem. And I'm not saying you should necessarily live or die by doing or not doing that it currently, but the margins for error get a lot smaller. The level of scrutiny gets a lot bigger, not just for Mikel Arteta, for Edu, for the players, etc. You know, with great power comes great responsibility. Not that there's been many, but you're the first manager of the post-Arsene Wenger era. Manager, not head coach. You know, Emery was asking for certain things. You were getting certain things. And rightly so, you've shown you can make things happen, but money's been spent. Can you now deliver a Premier League title or a Champions League or at least a proper sustained push? It feels like we you know, for as much as what other teams are doing, you know, it feels like we self-inflict problems really and truly. And if, you know, apparently Arsenal are confident Arteta will sign a new contract at the club. They've been in talks with him since the start of last season over an extended deal. Fair enough, really and truly. Get it done. I would like to see Smith Rowe. Arteta is quite happy with Eddie Nketiah and Jesus. I'm sure you are. They're two decent squad players, really and truly, but you got no choice but to be happy with them because we're not doing nothing. You know, Ivan Toney, Vlahovic, Osimhen, this guy, that guy, the third. Forget about that until the summer, really and truly. So it is what it is. Smith Rowe, again, 1 minute it's West Ham. Yesterday, you would have seen he was linked with Lazio on a dry loan. Today, he's linked with a move potentially back to RB Leipzig. And you know what? You see speculation over Jorginho, Smith Rowe, Eddie Nketiah, El Nene, and a bunch of players on the peripheral things. But if we're not bringing players in necessarily, can we necessarily let them depart? I don't know, people. I like Mikel Arteta. Obviously, he's a young coach. There's going to be certain naiveties he makes and stuff like that. But I do think, you know, as much as I like you, what people need to remember is it's Arsenal, not Mikel Arteta FC. I am not saying, you know, I think there's been times he could have got sacked. I think there's question marks. I think it's fair to say if he can't win a Prem or something like that, you should clip him. I understand people that stick with him. I see bits and pieces of both. I'm not neither Mikel Arteta in nor out. I support Arsenal Football Club. If there's a tangible plan or someone else that can come in and do better than Arteta, then it is what it is. I love Bukayo Saka, but if in theory, not that there's done because Starboy, if there was a player 20 times the ability of what Saka does and could do anything Saka does to a higher level, I'm not saying to sell Saka, but in theory, you know, bring him in. I support Arsenal. And I always say my biggest thing with Mikel Arteta and the biggest gripe is this is a guy that is going to be held in high regards in the footballing world and be linked with bigger clubs or big clubs in the future. But we've got to remember, we gave him this role. Rightly so, this is the project, but we gave him this role. This is his first job, and he's shown big bollocks to jump in at the deep end and take an Arsenal as his first role, especially at the period we're in. But this is not Mikel Arteta FC, it's Arsenal FC. What we don't want to be the case is, you know, he completes his foundation era as a manager and then he F's off somewhere and they enjoy the fruits of our labor. And he goes somewhere and say, you know what, I was in a similar situation at Arsenal. I did this, it didn't work out. Let me do that. So it is what it is, really and truly. You know, I think the club will say, you know what, top 3 finish. If you can run a league, you know, I think if we get top 3 finish, which is probably unlikely that we don't finish within the top 3, anything's up for debate. I think the club will be okay with that, really. I don't think Arteta is going to live or die by silverware, or you'd have to, you know, achieve the impossible, which is the Prem or the champs. So it is frustrating. I do think on the pitch we self-inflict problems, and I do think, you know, where recruitment's concerned or the depth or having one of the thin squads, Edu and Mikel Arteta is self-inflicted. It's as simple as that, man. So very frustrating comments to hear, people. But nonetheless, let me know your thoughts, people. Let me know your thoughts on everything we've discussed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all of those good things. Again, it's Nottingham Forest against Arsenal later today. I think we kick off at 7:30, so I'll be live from 6:30. Hope you lot have enjoyed the vid. Hope you lot are having a great start to the week and you and your loved ones are in great health. Make sure you subscribe and smash the like button, people. Road to 70,000 alive and kicking. Peace. Always that. I think